Okay, now that we are done setting up our project folder structure, the next thing that we're going to do now is move on to building our data preparation script. Okay, here we go. So what I did is I took the liberty of creating a data preparation recipe. It's a TXT file. This will take us through the stages, step by step, what we're going to be doing in order to build successfully our data preparation script. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new Python script file in the source directory. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the required imports in that Python script, define the input and output paths, write the function for splitting our data into training set and test set. Okay. And then once we're done, you're going to see how the script behaves. You're going to see it will display all the data that we've loaded from the commands.csv file. Not only that, but you'll also see the data that has been split, shuffled and split from the commands.csv file. Okay, here we go. Let's begin. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new Python script. Open up VS Code. Okay, right click the source folder. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call it data prep. data_prep.py. So like I said earlier in the previous module that we're going to be using Python in this course. So Python is our core programming language we're going to be using throughout the course. So the first thing we're going to do is, so Python scripts, they have an extension called .py, meaning .python. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let's go back to our txt file. So what have we done? We've created our Python script called dataprep.py. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the required imports inside our Python script. So let's go back to VS Code. Now, the thing that I want to make to remind you now of that, remember earlier on in the previous module, what we did, we installed pandas, which was a library that we installed. We installed scikit-learn. We installed numpy. Okay, so these libraries now, you're gonna start to see how they are used. Now we're gonna be using them now. So the requirements.txt file has the libraries that we are going to libraries that we're gonna need in this course. Okay, let's head out to our data preparation.py script and let's begin to use the libraries that we've installed before in module 2. Okay, so the thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna import. So write import. We're going to import pandas, okay, spd. So what I'm doing is I'm importing the library called pandas, which we installed before, and I'm creating an alias called pd, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reference another module from scikit-learn or sklearn. So we're going to type from sklearn dot. So this is a module, and within this module we need a submodule. This submodule is called model selection. Okay, so go ahead and type that model selection. So from sklearn.model selection, there's a function we're looking for called train test underscore split. This function is what's gonna enable us to split our data that is saved inside the raw folder called commands.csv. So commands.csv is our data set, is our raw data set. This data set has not been split in preparation for us to train the model on the data. So before we can train the model, we must first prepare the data. This is the stage that we are at now. Okay, so let's go back to data prep. So the next import that we're going to need is import OS. So OS is a Python module. Okay, it's a built-in Python module. This module enables us to interact with the operating system to create things like folders, directories, and so forth. Okay, so let's go back to our txt file. So now, okay, we've done this. So let's say done. Let's just mark these. Okay, the first thing also, let's mark this one that is done. Okay, we're going to move on to the next bit. So the next thing that we're going to do is we must define our input and output paths, where the raw data file, where the raw data file, which is the commands.csv file, is sitting. Not only that, but the data that has been split into training set, and test set that is used from the commands.csv file. So we need to basically define that. So let's go back to let's go back to our VS Code. Let me just put in some comments here. Okay. Hash, okay, imports. So when you put a comment, so this will not be read as part of the source code during the time when the code is being executed. It's just a comment, okay? So the next thing is, let's define the inputs. So define the inputs and outputs. The inputs and output. Okay, input and outputs. Path. So what we're going to need is, here we're going to define our input path and our output path. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, we know that this is our data folder. Inside our data folder, that's where our input path will be and our output path will be. So our input path will be inside raw. Okay, so let's start with that. So so these are constants, so it's common practice to use caps lock. Okay, so raw data path. Okay, so let's do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna type the path where where the commands.csv file is sitting. So it's under data raw commands.csv. Okay, so the next thing is, now we're gonna deal with the output path. Okay, so process directory. Okay, also it's gonna be sitting under data, as you know, the processed. So now we're done. So the next thing that we're going to do is, now we need to define where the outputs are going to be. We know the outputs will be sitting inside the process folder, but inside the process folder, that's where we're going to split our data from commands.csv, which is our raw data. So let's define that. So say train underscore path. So here what we're going to do is we're going to utilize our import.os module. So say os.path os.path join. So what this will do is it will basically join it joins different directories and put them into one string. That's what you're looking at here at the top here. So what we're going to do is we're going to call our process directory constant. And then in here, we're going to say, okay, we're going to create our CSV file called train.csv. So whenever you do data preparation in machine learning, you must make sure that your data will be split into the training set and also the test set. So it's going to be an 80-20 split. So 80% will be allocated to our training set and 20% will be allocated to our test set. So the training set is what is the data that's going to be used to train the model, and the test set is the data that's going to be used to test the model on new data. Okay, so the next thing is our test set. Okay, so os.path join, just hit tab, then we do the same. Okay, now this is our test set, test.csv. Okay, so just Control S to save that in the meantime in case you lose your work, so that you don't lose your work. Okay, so now go back to the txt file. So what have we done? We've created our input and our output parts. So that has been done now. So we're going to move on to the next thing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write our data loading and splitting function. So this function will be responsible for splitting our raw data into training set and test set. So what you're looking at here is we're going to load the data, we're going to load the raw data, which is commands.csv. We're going to split the data, we're going to split the command.csv data set into training set allocated 80% and test set allocated 20%. Okay, so let's do that. Let's write the function now. Okay, so let's create a comment, define function to split, to load and split the data set. Okay, so def. So in Python, when you create a function, you start by typing the word def. So def means you are defining a function. So load and split. So load and split the data. Okay, so Python, if you have used other programming languages like C, C++, Java, and so forth, so Python doesn't use open and close parentheses. It uses tabs. So that's why when you see after I hit the semicolon, when you hit enter, it automatically tabs, which is the body of the function. So here, we're going to just write another function to say load raw data set. That data set, so now I want you to go back. Now when you look up here, you notice that we have an import called pandas spd. So now it's time for us use the pandas library. Okay, so now I want you to open up your browser, right? Let's go to pandas python. So just type that. It will bring up the library that we're going to be using, which we installed. Okay, so this is the pandas library. It's an open source library. So pandas, it says pandas is a fast, powerful, flexible, and easy to use open source data analysis and manipulation tool built on top of the Python programming language. So that's what we're going to be using to manipulate our data. So pandas takes the CSV file and puts it in a data frame. Data frame meaning rows and columns, the same way you would have in Excel. Is basically something similar. The only thing is that in pandas, indexes start counting from 0, and in Excel, indexes start counting from 1. Okay, so now let's go back. We're gonna load our data set. So data frame PD. Now we're calling our pandas library. So PD read CSV. So the pandas library has a function called read CSV, which is what we are calling now. So inside here, we want to pass in the name of where we're going to pass in the constants where the command, our data set, is actually sitting. So say raw, hit tab. Okay, so now this will read our data set. Okay, so let's say print and just put a message to say raw data loaded. Okay, raw data loaded. And then we're gonna print the raw data that has been loaded. Okay, so now we're gonna print df, which is our data frame. So the next thing that we must now do is, let's go back to our txt file. Okay, so let's make sure we need to make sure that, okay, the next thing that we want to do is we need to split our data. We must split our data set, which we now loaded. Okay, this is our data set, commands.csv. So we must we must shuffle and split our data into testing set and training set. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's say shuffle and split data set into training and test set. So we know training, we use 80% of the data, and then our test set, we use 20% of the data, which is new data that the model has not seen. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a new variable called train.df, and also another one called test underscore df. And then we're gonna call the method that is, we're gonna now use our library that we've imported. That library is called scikit-learn or scikit-learn. So this is a module. This module scikit-learn has a submodule called model selection. So we're gonna be using this function called train test split. This is gonna allow us to split our data. Okay, so but before I proceed, go back, open up your browser. Let's type scikit-learn. Do more research after this, read the rest on your own, do more research to gain more knowledge. Okay, reading is fundamental and comprehension is key. Understand that. Okay, so now this is scikit-learn.org. It's also an open source machine learning library. It's robust, it's amazing, it's incredible. Okay, so basically what it does is it says it's a simple and efficient tools for predictive data analysis. It's accessible to everybody. It's open source, reusable in various contexts, built on NumPy, SciPy, and Matplotlib. Remember, we install NumPy. NumPy is basically it's a matrix array, and then Matplotlib is for plotting graphs and so forth. You see the graphs that you see here. You're gonna be able to plot graphs like these using Matplotlib. Okay, it's open source, commercially usable. It's got a BSD license. Okay, let's go back. So now we're gonna use the function called train test split. Let's use that. Okay, train. There we go. So inside here, we must reference our data frame. The next thing is our test size. So the size of our tests, 0.2 meaning 20%. You can even use 0.25, which is 25%. And then the next thing is we're gonna seed a random number. Okay, go back to our commands.csv. Okay, so I just want to show you something regarding the splitting of the data into training set and test set. So let's say, so here we've got 6 rows in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is 80% of the data. So these 4 rows constitute 80% of the data, and the last remaining 2 constitute 20% of our data. So for instance, depending on how the split is done, the split will always be 80-20. Okay, and we're gonna see the random number to make sure that the division of the data in the 80% and the 20% do not cross over every time you run the model. Okay, so now let's go back. So what we're gonna do is we're also gonna see the random number. Okay, so random state 42. So we are seeding a random number. This number 42 is commonly used in machine learning. I think it's attributed to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and so forth. So, but this number 42, it's our seed to make sure that every time when you run the model or you train the model, you always get the same results. Because if you put number 12, the split will be the same in terms of 80-20, but the results will not be the same because the data that is in the 20% will cross over to the 80% and vice versa. You don't want that. Therefore, we want machine learning models that are reproducible. Okay, so what have we done? Now we've shuffled and split the data set into training and test set. Let's go back to our text file. Okay, so we have done this. So let's say done this. We have done. We've done this thing. We also created a function. This is done. Okay, so this is also been done. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to ensure if the processed directory exists. If it doesn't, make one. Okay, let's go back. So the next thing that we're still inside the function. Okay, so keep that in mind. We're still inside the function. Okay, let's do that. Check if processed folder exists. So OS, we're going to use the OS library. We're going to use the OS module. So OS make. So, okay, let me write that right. Make directory. So the same way we will have mkdir, Python also has a function called make directory. So this creates directories for you. So, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up and we're going to use the process directory. We're going to reference the process directory from here. So process directory. And then inside here, we want to type exists. This is a boolean exists. Okay, and then we're gonna set it to true. So what we're gonna do is this, basically what this does is it tells Python to say, listen, if the folder does not exist, create one. If it does exist, it's fine. That's what we want. Okay, and so the next thing, let's go back to a txt file. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to save the train and test sets to the CSV file inside the process folder. Okay, so that's the next thing that we want to do. Okay, let's mark that as done. This has been done. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so save train and test sets to process folder. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. So remember we created two variables, train df, test df. Okay, so these are the data frames of variables we're gonna be using. So train df dot to CSV, to underscore CSV. So this is a function that tells Python to say, okay, save this specific data set that has been split. You must save it to the process folder. So let's go there, process directory, and then in here we're gonna say train.csv. Okay, so this will produce a train.csv folder. This will produce a train.csv file. The next thing is test df. We do the same to CSV. Okay, process directory. So what we want to add in here is our test.csv file. So these two now, this once when it's all done, what's going to happen is that inside this process folder we're going to have two files. We're going to have the train.csv and test.csv. So now it means that successfully we would have managed to basically split our data into the training set and into the test set. Okay, let's go back to our text file. Okay, so we have done this we have done. So what I want to do also is I just want to, inside this function, right, just put a message out that we have managed to successfully save the train.csv to the process folder and also the test.csv to the process folder. So we're going to basically create, so training set saved to. So this is a placeholder basically. So this is, in Python, they are called f strings. So here we're going to put a variable that will reference the value that will be printed out. In this case, we have process.dir. No, we've got this. We've got train path and test path. Okay. So yeah, that's it. We're gonna do the same, print, use f strings, test set saved to test path, tab, and then here we go. So now that we've done that, let's go back to our txt file. Okay, so we're gonna call we're gonna call our function load and split the data from our main function. The main function is the entry point for our program. So dataprep.py has a main entry point. So when we run it, it will start running from the main function. Okay, so let's define that real quick. So if name underscore main. So basically what this does is an if statement that tells us, okay, so the entry point, the name is equal to the main function. So inside this main function, we are going to call the function that we've defined earlier called load and split data. Okay, so let's call that function load and split data, and then put parentheses there. So now what's going to happen is that this function right here will be called when this dataprep.py script is run. Okay, so what have we done? Let's go back. So we've created the main function, and now we're calling the function from the main entry point of the program, of the script. Okay, so this is done. So what we need to do now, we must run the script. Okay, let's go back, open your VS Code once again. So remember, this is our data set. This is our raw data set. Our raw data set has been split. Let's do a quick recap. So what we have done is we've managed to do our imports. We managed to define our input and outputs. Now we've defined our function to split our data in preparation for it to be trained. Okay. And then the next thing is we created a check to check if the data, if the process folder is there. If not, create one and put the data up in there. So what we have now is that once the folder, because the folder is there, what we're going to do is we're going to split the data and we're going to save it as train.csv, test.csv. The next thing that we did was to basically put out on the terminal or on the output to say training set has been saved to that path and test set has been saved to that path. Okay, so let's move on. So the lastly is our main entry point for our script. So now what we're going to do is we need to run this. Okay, we're going to say Python. So present working directory, we know where we at. We are in MLOps course, which is our root directory. So say Python. You know what? Let's go to our thread. Okay. So we are inside our thread project folder. Say Python source and then data prep. So let's hit enter. Let's wait now. Let's see. Okay, so couple of issues here. Load and split data. So there's a problem here. Okay, another thing that I forgot to do, right? Let's go back to our data here. Exist. Okay, wait a minute. Exist, not exists. Exist. Okay, not exists. Let's run it again. Okay. Yeah. Hit enter. Okay, so there's a issue nyana going on here. Permission denied. Let's see, storage option. Let's go all the way up and see what the problem is. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to see is that the raw data was successfully loaded. Raw data loaded, because yes, you can see here, you can see this right here is our raw data set. Let's open it up. You see that right there? That is, you see our column, that's we have 2 columns and we've got 6 rows. So what you see here is that command, that's it right there, label. Okay. So successfully we managed to load our raw data. So, but the thing that is a problem now is that we need to make sure that we need to ensure that the rest of the code works. Okay, let's see. Okay, what I want to do is I want to look at this. Okay, yeah, let's fix this. Is the problem actually. We don't want to do this. So yeah, that's fine. But what I want to do is index false. So the reason why I'm doing this is because when we save our data, right, we want to make sure that the index is not saved as well. Okay, so that was my mistake. So let's fix that real quick. We do the same. Set it to false. It's a boolean. So okay, so we're gonna save our data to a CSV split into training set and test set. Okay, so what I want to show you here is this. Let's save it. Let me just scroll up a bit. I want to show you something. You see here, right here, you've got, you see, this is the index. Like I mentioned earlier that in pandas, what it does is that the index count, meaning the count starts from 0. Okay, so that's why you have 0 here, 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5. So what we don't want to save that in our data. Again, this is now the data that we are now preparing. So in the data that we are preparing, we don't want to save the indexes as well. So that's why here we're saying index is assigned to false. So we don't want to save the index. So let's run this again and see what results it gives us. Okay, hit enter. Wait for it. Something is off here. Why is it saying permission denied? Let me run this. Let me clean this up. Let's just hit the up arrow on the keyboard. Wait. Source. Yeah, thread detector. So I'm in the right place. Okay, let's hit enter. Permission denied. data processed. Okay, so I think I know what the problem is now. Let's clear this. No. Let's not do that. Let's clear our terminal. Okay, let's run this once again. Okay, hit enter. Okay, so the reason why it says permission denied. So what we need to do here is we actually need to use the constants we defined up here. This one. We start with this one. And then we put it in here. And then this is the train. Then the test one also we copy and also put it in here. That's it. So this is what it was complaining about. So basically it can't save to this guy. It can't necessarily save this folder because the folder is already there. We need to save to the folder rather than saving the folder itself. The folder is already existing. We need to save to the folder. Okay, so let's clear that. Let's run it. Voila, you see that? So now what we got is we've got, okay, our raw data has been loaded, as you can see. Then the next thing is to confirm that the splitting of the data is successful. Look at this. So the training set has been saved to data processed is been saved. Not only that, but the test set also has been saved to the process folder. So let's go to the process folder and check that out. There we go. So now you've got the test set has got 20% of the data. And then the training set has got 80% of the data. So that's what you have here. You've got 4 rows. Here you've got 2 rows. Okay, so we good. So let's go back to our txt file. So this has been done. This also has been done. So we've confirmed the output is there. So there you go. That's some good stuff right there. Okay, so now we've managed to basically, let's recap. Okay, what we did is we built our data preparation script, which is this one, successfully. It also loaded our data set, which is our raw data. We also managed to successfully split the data into the training set and the test set. And not only that, but we've saved it to the process folder, which is what we wanted from the beginning. Okay, so now that we've done this, the data is prepared, we're ready to train our model. So now, like I said earlier, so in module 3, there's module 3.1, which is creating our project folder structure, which is what we did previously. And then now what we've done is we've actually prepared our data. So before you train your model, you must prepare your data first and foremost. And this is what we've done here. So you should be happy about this thing. We're making progress. Okay, so data has been prepped. The next thing, which is coming in module 3.3, which is next week, and module 3.4, we're gonna be training we're gonna train the model with the 80% of the data, and we're gonna test the model with 20% of the data, which is the data it has not seen before, to see how the model behaves. And this is the part where we're gonna start talking about MLflow, where we're going to be registering our model to MLflow to see the performance of the model, so on and so forth. But we're going to conclude here. So see you in the next lesson next week. Okay.